Hello there. Top of the morning, the afternoon, and the evening to you, whomever you may be, wherever you may be watching, looking, or listening. It's your boy Anthony Moore. Ant Mo, for those of you who may not know for sure, and welcome to the Mind of a Man Network. The network. It's for you, the people. And welcome to the Mind of a Man Network. This is the show, the Late Night Shift Live with your boy, your player, your partner, your host, Anthony Moore. Ant Mo, for those of you who may know for sure. And I want to welcome you to a fantastic show that I have for you tonight. So, with that being said, I would like to do my intro. But before I do my intro, if you are here, we are talking about Black people. Are we tropes? The new modern day blackface. There are some things that I've seen, there are some things that have been going on that we don't pay attention to, but if we so choose to pay attention to it, we would realize that we put ourselves in precarious situations sometimes. So if you are here, we will get to that and more right after this. Squee bop, dee dop, she dop, ooh. Yeah, watch the duty. We got the late night shift live. Yeah, it's the late night shift live. It's the late night shift live. Yeah. And now for your host, the incomparable Anthony Moore. Welcome, and as you can see, we trying to create around here. We trying to do a few little things. But with that being said, as I said before, welcome to the late night shift, where we aim to shift the culture's perspective with unadulterated truth, with a little bit of grace, one story at a time. At the late night shift live, we believe that hype is overrated and very short-lived. So instead of chasing hype, we believe in keeping it real. That is real relevant, real player, and real live. So we talking about Black people tonight. We talking about us, we, our, and it made me think about a few things. The reality that is that as a Black man, I believe that I am very much disconnected from the world, from the plight of others, from the white, European, Anglo-Saxon, whatever name you want to put it under, their issues. And ultimately, I'm disconnected from myself. It is hard to feel for others when I don't believe I feel for me. Now, that isn't to say that we are supposed to take a woe is me approach to life, or that we make small of what's going on in the world or anything like that, but it's to thy own self be true. It is very important, if we look to make any waves in the world, if we look to make a dent in any of the isms, classism, ageism, racism, sexism, I don't care what ism that it is, we have to start being more aware and real with where we're actually at, who we are, how we feel, how do we see the world, what are our experiences. And if we don't do that, we are only perpetuating cycles of the people that have preceded us by making us believe that we'll do things better or different just because we're in the power seat, just because now it's no fun when the rabbit has the gun. I've said it before, I said it again, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And us as Black people, to start this opening monologue, it is important that we do the things necessary to be mindful of who we are and how we feel. Now, I must say, my faith allows me to see things in a different way, from a different playing field, and it encourages me to look beyond myself. My children force me to be selfless, to think of myself less. And therapy has allowed me to see myself and my flaws from a non-judgmental standpoint, and to have to operate in my purpose, giving me more opportunity to work towards what God has put, the things He's put in my life. Going through depression, or being underpaid, or just dealing with the disappointments that could hit anybody in life in general. So those things have kind of worked together. My faith, my children, my purpose. It all works together to help me operate and be a different man than I was 10 years ago, 10 months ago. And so this is my encouragement to start is we have to realize that the time is absolutely now to better ourselves, to better our environments, and to ultimately make the shift to be in better standing with God, to be in better standing with yourself, and what you are called to do. If you are a man or a woman that is operating in life and you are not being intentional about bettering yourself, your relationship with God, or to focus on something that you are called to in life, if you're not figuring out what you're called to, you're pretty much living an aimless life. And we have to be very careful with that as human beings, because we're put here to do something to affect change, whatever your sphere of influence is. And so I'll say this: Black people in 2025 still haven't been allowed to live outside of the monolith that the world has depicted us to be. As I was thinking about this episode, as I was looking to bring all of this to some level of culmination to tie everything in, it made me realize that no matter who I bring up, no matter what I talk about, it is going to present some level of duality in holding somebody accountable for being perceived a certain way or for not being perceived a certain way. For this person appealing to a certain crowd and this person choosing to stay true to whatever his roots or her roots are. Those are some of the things that don't allow us as Black people to evolve in life. And it is very important that we are mindful of that, because there are certain things that we have to do to make ourselves appear less dangerous in many facets of life. If you can take something as simple as me playing my PlayStation 5, playing online gaming, and hearing Indian people say these racist things. Of course, there's your white people that may push the envelope with saying things as they hide behind keyboards and consoles, even Hispanics. And it's not to say that those things don't go hand in hand. You deal with a world of people who like to throw rocks and hide their hands. The reality is, we are all culpable of some level of using our ignorance in a way that echoes stereotypes, that make one person represent the whole sum of its parts. And it's a part of being human. But where it can get dangerous, where it can get scary, is when we don't allow ourselves the bandwidth to grow, mature, and make better choices with the information that we now know or attain as being one of the most informed, most knowledgeable generations in history. Whether that is the information age, the dot-com bubble, or even now the inception of AI, we have a lot of things at our fingertips that we don't choose to do anything with. And that becomes very dangerous if we're not aware of who we are, what we think, how we feel, things that we experience as children. All of those things have the ability to affect us in ways. And so I encourage you to be very mindful of that as you maneuver through life. So there are certain things that I put down here. So I said, to appear less dangerous, we must wear a three-piece suit, talk with the Queen's English, or have an aspect of our lives that embody and represent white culture. It ultimately puts us between a rock and a hard place. Um, and then we're made out to be tropes for society. So now you're masqueraded out and around in a way that may be satisfying to some because it makes them feel safe, but it alienates you to your own people because now they don't recognize the version of you that may represent who you are when you're not on camera or when you're not in a pulpit or when you're not at your job, right? And so that is some of the things that we are learning to deal with in this whatever century, 22nd century or 21st century or whatever. um, it's just kind of disappointing that as much as we lean into this empowerment, this rise of black people in knowledge and all of these things, and I don't want anybody to ever get this misconstrued. This isn't about black empowerment, even. This is about the reality that we will always live in some level of duality when it comes to who we are and who people want us to be, right? And so, as I said before, we are made to be tropes of society, right? And I put here, what is worse than blackface is a blackface in blackface, right? It's Chicken George, so to speak, right? When we think about history or we look at society, the reality is most things that people did going back to slavery, most things that people do in life aren't just about appealing to something that looks different to them. Some things are about survival. And I think it's just highly unfortunate that sometimes we can call people certain names, that they're cooning or other things like that because they simply have a different thought process or opinion than what we would hold to. Now, I know there are some platforms out there that I actually respect that are moving the needle in areas like this. These aren't things that I talk about primarily, not because they aren't important, but because it can have the ability to create attention that, although it may create certain conversations, is not necessarily as beneficial as what people would hope it to be. Now, I do believe in having conversation. The conversation rule the nation. Y'all, if all the players out there, for lack of a better word, you understand that the ability for us to converse and come to an understanding is the most powerful and effective thing that we could do as human beings, right? But at the same time, there are some people that I've brought, that I put on this list here, that people could stand on different sides of the coin for far different reasons, but still could embody and represent all the things that I'm talking about, that I've talked about thus far, that can create a wedge and a piece of tension within our culture as black people, as people of color, even spanning beyond just black people, that could make, others feel away, right? So the first one is Kamala Harris. Another one I put on here is Ben Carson. The third one I put is Candace Owens. And the fourth one is Kevin Hart. And so when I look at Kamala and I look at Ben Carson, these would be two of the people that, if we wouldn't have to think too long to hear or recall people having these grave differences on how they view them as black people, right? It's the idea of, I keep hot sauce in my purse, and that was actually Hillary Clinton, right? Or people saying, if you vote for Trump, you're not black, coming from a white person. It's those type of things that pander and cater to the uninformed, less engaged sect of black people in America who don't really care about all the facts. I'll say it that way, right? I don't think it's that anybody who would vote for somebody based off of that merit, or who would take the bait on that, is seen as any less intelligent, right? But the reality is, it's a farce. It's an attempt to appeal to what is considered to be your actual blackness, as if hot sauce in your purse, or taking snacks into a movie theater that you brought from the house, or eating chicken and watermelon is the epitome of what it means to be black. And I would dare say, if in fact that is the epitome of what it means to be black in America, then we can now start understanding why we are at a grave disadvantage as a people, why we cannot seem to communicate properly, come together, have an understanding, or get on one accord about how to actually move forward in a society where we are 400 years or more behind the curve on information, wealth, partnering, etc. So when we talk about a Kamala Harris, there are some things that which I'll hold off on Kamala. We'll get to her, but the Ben Carsons of the world, seen as these guys who appear, these types of people even, who make hate for white America. Now, I'm not here to tell you what side of the fence to stand on, but the reality is it will strike a nerve one way or another. And the unfortunate part is that when you look at most of the people who stand in those positions, who are then roasted or lambasted by their own people as a result of a certain stance that they take, whether that be for them to be Republican, uh, whether that is for them to be anti something or pro something, that is the nature of the battle that is politics. Republican versus Democrat versus Tea Party versus liberals versus independent, whatever it is, or wherever you may stand, the reality is those are some of the things that end up being inevitable, because you never get to have people who have an informed decision made about how they feel or what they think about the people who either stand on the opposing side of them in a presidential candidate race. And it's not just presidential, it could be for mayor, it could be for your local offices. Typically, no matter what you think or you feel, it is meant to prompt you to warrant a response that automatically says that we're not working towards the same thing, even if we stand on both sides. Let me dig for what you've done in your past. Let me speak to the things that you do that are anti-American or anti your people, anti your culture. And these people, like the Kamalas, the Ben Carsons, the Candace Owens, the Kevin Harts, all fall on those sides for different reasons. So even when we talk about a Candace Owens, and I listened to somebody like Amanda Seals when she was on the Grits and Eggs podcast, talk about make a comment that lended to the idea that Candace Owens wasn't really that intelligent, as if being able to spout certain things, statistics or things you may have read in books, doesn't make her as intelligent. Now, I don't have anything against Amanda Seals. Even I think she has a pretty good free thinking mind that uh, doesn't necessarily lend to, not even necessarily, it doesn't lend to Democrats or Republicans, and I can appreciate that because I don't stand on either one of those sides either. But she it's like, once again though, because she stands in a more liberal space and Candace stands in a more Republican space, it automatically lends to them standing on sides that make them almost have to go to war with each other, even if it's on words. When the reality is they are black people who have two different experiences that probably on a lot of levels want the same out of life for their people and for the country that they live in, but from a standpoint of maybe this person has been benefited a little better because she has been aligned with white American Republican ideals that have more of an impact, immediate impact on government, on money, on opportunities, even. And then with Amanda, I can't say I know her story for sure. I'm just saying I would imagine that her experiences have been a little different. I could even see maybe her being a person who has been to a HBCU, and maybe a Candace Owens being somebody who went to a PWI. And so that automatically calls into effect your blackness, how relevant you may actually be. And so my point is, we don't get to freely live those experiences as black people without who we are or what they may believe we represent being called to the carpet in a way that can make us seem less black. You know, you're more black if you went to HBCU versus a PWI, right? You're more black if you still live in the hood versus if you decided to move to the suburbs, those types of things. So, I think it makes it very difficult for us as black people to really carve out who we are when we have to always pick a side based off of what appeals to everybody outside of our culture at the same time as it appeals to the people that are inside of our culture. It's very dangerous, and it can be a weird place for black people to stand at times. So even when we look at somebody like a Kevin Hart, right? I can remember and I could hear people who talk about Kevin Hart and say his first specials were more funny. Now, that was before the money and all of the fame and the stardom. I mean, he had a name. This is, after Paper Soldiers and things of that nature. But before he became this global icon, there's this idea within the black community, especially for somebody like a Kevin Hart, that when he becomes more appealing to the white side, that he becomes less appealing, automatically less appealing to the black side. And so my thought that I put on this is we dictate cool and relevancy, and even mass appeals. So when we do appeal to the crowds, when we have the mass appeals to popular crowds, it indicates success and a crossover ability, but also indicts you of losing your shine and intrigue to the black culture. It's the idea that a Mike Epps will forever be more funny to black people because that's his targeted audience, versus if a white person finds Kevin Hart to be more funnier based off of whatever it is that he chooses to believe, or his appeal and how people choose to view him. And so this whole episode was brought together initially by me watching Club Shay Shay, and he had this comedian Roy Woods on, and he brought up one Kamala Harris. And it gave me this thought as he kind of spoke about the battle that she was fighting and how she, didn't really stand a chance based off of certain ideals, how people didn't want to support her as this black woman. And, basically the fix was in. Unfortunately, although I believe that he made decent points at a time, I also believe that it was incredibly nearsighted, and I want to put that up there so y'all can see who I'm actually talking about for those of you who may or may not know who Kamala Harris is. I believe that although what he said was to a large level informed, I believe it was definitely very nearsighted. I think it was most people who take certain stances like Kamala never stood a chance based off of her whatever you want to fill in the blank with. It is typically brought from a biased standpoint when you talk about a black person. It is no different than Barack Obama. It doesn't matter if, and here's the reality. It's tough because these people don't have to be 100% black. Your mama black, your daddy black. We could trace your heritage back to Africa for them to be considered as these black relevant people within our culture. But here's the struggle when it comes to people like that. These two people in particular who were able to scale the mountain and sit in the highest offices within our judicial system, our whatever you want to call that at the moment. Here's my thought. The inauthenticity ruins black people or at least the view of them. So when you look at somebody like a Kamala Harris, she lied about listening to Snoop Dogg. She said when she was in college, she listened to Snoop Dogg. You are by far older than Snoop Dogg, and you were not listening to him in high school. I mean, in college. Talked about smoking weed, like bragging about it in the, in certain interviews. Not that this is a big deal to me, but it's amazing that the people who get these opportunities, her husband isn't black. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. Once again, you marry who you want to marry of the opposite sex. You love who you want to love of the opposite sex. But it's the idea that it's like as if black people make this big deal about Trump is this, he's that, this is what he ain't. He's a rapist, 34 felony charges, all these things. And then everything about what he is and what he represents says just vote for the other side. She a sister, right? But it's like if you seen that her husband wasn't black, you wouldn't feel the way you feel, which shows that we aren't studied, we aren't prepared or informed about how to actually go about representing people that look like us that ascend to these high offices. And so what I've come to the thought process of the realization of is that a lot of the times these people are pawns. And mind you, I'm not even speaking to the standpoint of this, whatever the Illuminati, whatever that stuff. I'm not even speaking to that. I'm speaking to the fact that people are willing to do whatever, use whoever to keep whatever the system is, whatever your power is, in power. Period. And the unfortunate part is that we fall for it as well. If you are somebody who lives in the Bible Belt, if you're somebody who believes in Christianity and all of those things, and you voted for Barack Obama, you voted for a president who multiple times, matter of fact, of all the presidents in all the ages of the world of presidencies, wrote in the most homosexual bills ever. Period. But Obamacare was supposed to be a thing that saved the day. I'm not saying it was bad, but then to invoke a $500 fine to anybody who didn't have it, as if people should have the ability to have insurance or not have insurance. That is the point of this being this great land of the free, home of the brave. I can live whatever lifestyle that I desire to live, but you and I both know that that is not the reality that we live in. So when we look at somebody like a Kamala Harris, it's blackface and blackface. And the unfortunate reality is that most of the times, people who have those seats have to take certain stances and positions to maintain them. Most powerful black leaders don't live long lives. Most people who go against the system in some standpoint, if you get to ascend to that level and you are a black person, I would be more comfortable saying that it comes with more circumstances, more things that you have to worry about within this culture. So when we look at, as I've stated, the Candace Owens of the world, she's not seen as educated as some of her other counterparts, or she is a coon, or she's paid off, when the reality is our experiences culminate and make up who we are and what we represent in life. The way that I speak and articulate, I don't have these greater, higher levels of education, even though I have a bachelor's degree and some graduate, but I didn't. Most of it was about my experiences. Most of it is how I grew up, how I was raised, and I'm just a different person than even what my siblings were. But as black people, we don't get the opportunity to live freely of how we think. Prime example, if you look at a black man who's in a relationship with a white woman. He's going to be frowned upon. The true stance, the true reality of us living in this free society, this true utopia, is the idea of people, obviously within the moral context of people doing wise things, meaning that things like bestiality or pet or whatever, aren't things that are accepted within healthy societies. But outside of that, as a black person, you should be able to have certain levels of expression. You should be able to choose to be a police officer. You should choose to be able to marry a white person or a person of any other color. You should have the ability to vote Republican. You should have the ability to do a bunch of things that aren't accepted within society. Because more than what this country has been founded upon, we have chose to believe what other people believe about the country and what it means. Living in, it's interesting thinking about like living in a gated community is this great expression of making it. Whereas, living in the hood or living in communities where the mean income in certain things isn't as high represents this struggle. But my true question is, what is it that is supposed to be expected of people who grew up with rats and roaches and crime and infestation and whatever the struggle may have been? Where are we as a people? Where do we come to a healthy medium and a balance? Because everybody can't live in gated communities. Personally, I think I take pride that my children have never lived in low income housing, so to speak. Not because there's been a bunch of money that has been made, but because as people that were brought here, not by choice, we should take pride in making sure that the generation that comes behind us has something to experience that we never had to. Not talking about the idea of making your kids understand hard work or the value of a dollar. No, those things are always and forever should be present. But the reality that why would I want my kids to grow up having to share bath water or soap or sharing clothes because you absolutely have to and not because, hey, listen, this is a new outfit that got passed down. There are a lot of struggle things, and I can get rid of this. Sorry, Kamala, you got to go. But there are a lot of things that are impacting our neighborhoods, that are impacting us as a black culture that we don't talk about. And it's the idea, even within the entertainment industry, that it can only be one at a time. Meaning somebody like The Rock Johnson, who can be that is considered a black man for all intents and purposes, he's like this outlier, like even like a Vin Diesel, who they can kind of do what they want and make as much money as they can. But when you look at a Kevin Hart, who is the counterpart to him, that has the exposure, that has the ability, that can move freely and provide the same amount of opportunities. Although I'm never mad or upset at the reality that what Kevin Hart has been able to do. But I think we just fight against ourselves so much that we don't even ever give time for the outside world to really truly judge us on our character or who we are. We choose to nitpick and have negative things to say about ourselves throughout that whole time. So we have Miss LaShonda Reese in the building. Ooh, y'all left me hanging tonight, dog. Ooh wee. Utopia. I used to love those drinks. Yeah, that's Fruitopia. Man, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Make sure you hit that like as well. And yeah, man. So we're talking about the idea that as black people, we are typically made to be tropes. Um, you know, They want us to appear to be something that represents them and their culture, and then we are then put on display to say this is what's acceptable. And to be honest, I think that I would, if I was to be real about myself or how I view life, or how I can even view some black people, I don't think that our narrative or our experience is too far from that. Right? When you talk about us being in black, being in corporate America, the ones who do everything that the boss says are considered to be brown nosers, right? Or that word that is used often, engaging in coonery and things of that nature. Do any of my people that are viewing tonight have that type of experience? Please put it in the comments. How is it? Do you agree or disagree? Is what I'm trying to get out of my mouth right now. Do you agree or disagree with that idea? Um, what has been the experience of being a person that has had a certain level of status, living in a certain neighborhoods, especially when it comes down to our families, right? Most people that come from certain backgrounds and have certain family members are, if you're the person with means, and I'm not saying this is typically me, or what I'm saying, but it's like typically if you have a higher level of means, you will be bled dry by the people around you if they don't know how to manage money, if they don't know how to respect boundaries, and you're seen as this person who thinks that they're too good, that you forgot where you came from. And those are things that are deeply rooted within our society that don't really doesn't lend to people taking accountability for their own actions and how you choose to live your life. So let's see what Ms. Reese had to say. Little swig from a canteen. Randy, you didn't tell me what you thought about that drink, by the way. She said it's weird. I normally get a notification when you go live, but it didn't do it this time. I could believe it. I could believe it because Randy said it's a manipulation. I ain't changed. You asked for 20 and I said no. And that's real. If and being honest, right? Growing up where I grew up at and how I grew up, I was raised to be a leader. I was raised to be a provider and a protector at a young age. Whether I wanted it to be that way or not, it was what it was, right? Those habits became the hardest thing to break as I became a older man with responsibilities, having children, being married, having dreams, things that I wanted to accomplish in life. When the people around you don't view life through a different lens, it becomes this thing. Um, it becomes this thing that you have to fight against, because those people will never be okay with. They will make you feel wrong or feel like you're doing something bad because you choose to live your life a certain way or contrary to how you were raised. So let's see. Ms. Reese said, I can definitely relate. I used to always hear, you think you're better than us. I only wanted better and took action on it. And that's the thing that people they're not real about. It's like some people are just, you resigned to this is the way your life is going to be. And in the black community, I can only speak to the black community because that's the community that I live in. I didn't choose to wake up a black man. It's just the way it happened. Those are some of the things that are perpetuated within our culture and in society, where it's like people make you feel bad about living differently, as if it makes it easier because you make more money. Most high earners personal. Most high earners paronal. She said, "Cuz funny. Them black folks gonna shame you to death." Yeah, that's one thing they gonna do. Hey, it's kind of one thing they gonna do is shame you to death. But yeah, growing up in the black community, that is one of the things that we definitely struggle with, as well as even if you look at somebody like a Snoop Dogg, right? Somebody tell me what's cool about Snoop Dogg, and I'm not being funny here, because what we'll start to understand, and what I pose certain questions that I don't believe I always get a good answer on, and it is, what perpetuates blackness as a culture, right? When we start breaking down who we are as a people, what makes us black? What are the things that says this is black culture? Because most of the time it is going to be something that is a joke. It's going to be something that we don't really appreciate, but we grow to accept, like saying the N-word. So for those of you watching, please hit the like for me. It's free. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed, and then tell me in the comments, what does it mean to you, if you are black, to be black? If you white, please, I don't even want them people on you in them comments, dog. Just hold it. Just tell me what you think it might mean for you to be white if you're white, or Mexican if you're Mexican. But don't fall for that joke. Don't fall for that one, Joe. And so Randy said, most high earners, personal situations, bills, or challenges are disregarded by the people that feel entitled to high earners' resources. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's like a thread that we just my brother just shared with me, and I'm gonna read this next comment after I say this, but it's a thread that my brother just shared with me, where it was kind of breaking down, if Trump was to give out this $2,000 tariff payback or whatever, that anybody 75,000 and below would get it, a single person. I think it was like married people 112 and below would get it. They would qualify for something. But if you were married and made a certain amount of money above, then you wouldn't qualify. And so it was just interesting to me that there were people in the comments that were counting other people's pockets that had an issue with somebody actually making, like somebody making a certain amount of money, basically saying, hey, if you make $100,000 and you can't live, then that's your fault. And I thought that to be very interesting, because most people who make $100,000 live a lifestyle. You try to live below your means, but most likely you're gonna, if you can afford to live $200,000 lifestyle, that's probably gonna come with some expenses that you only can somewhat afford because you make a little more money, like regular groceries in your house every couple weeks, maybe a nice car, buy whatever your standard is of a nice car, actually being able to afford a mortgage. Let's not forget about the reality that inflation is still a living, breathing entity. It still costs more money for me as $100,000 person than as it does for you at 50. Like, there are a lot of things that are necessities, but that are just seen as luxuries because the reality of the classes. We all are still just humans trying to figure it out, trying to make a little more money, trying to have a little bit of piece of what we believe the American dream is. That can vary. And so, yeah, I just thought it was interesting that there were people online taking issue with somebody because they made $100,000. Here's the reality: that $100,000 is still taxed. There's still, you, like, we gotta just stop, man. Like, there's something I want to speak to, and I'll get there, but let me get to my comments because I don't want to leave my people hanging. Randy said, I just know that if I overextend myself, there aren't many that can help me get out of it. And you know what? That is a high level of wisdom. It's like the Bible saying, consider the ants, you sluggard. You know, they store in the summer. It's like, if I have more, I shouldn't be shelling out more than I'm bringing in, and I should probably be preparing for a rainy day, because it's life. It happens to all of us. So especially as Black people, we are so behind the eight ball. The average, I believe the average, if I'm thinking about John Hope Bryant, he said the average um credit score of in Black America is like below a 615 or something like that, or a 620. And if you're somebody who has like a 700 or an 800, you're the reason that it's even at a 620. So there's a lot of poor education about finances, about credit, and we don't understand that if we got more money, it wouldn't change how we lived our lives. We would just blow more money. But those are conversations that we're not willing to have, because we just feel like if Trump gives us $2,000, our lives are going to be better somehow. And I'll take $2,000 tomorrow. Yes. But the reality is we have to learn how to vertically integrate, how to build better structures around our families, around our businesses, better ourselves, our mental capacity, our emotional stability, how we think and handle life, how we mate with people. We're not thinking about that as Black people. And so now, as a result of that, bringing it all full circle, when we are put in positions to elevate, we fight tooth and nail to stay in those positions no matter what it means. That's where we become the trope. So now you look like your oppressor. And I'm not saying that to say white person. I'm saying anybody who is against the progress of change or betterment or growth or development as a human being, for a Black person even. So this is where we have to know what it actually means to know better, do better. Man, we got Bruce Wayne Glass in the building, my guy. Salute. Long time no see. It's always good. I know you go back and rewatch the videos, but I always love it when you're able to come on here live, dog. Just do my hard habit. You feel me? And then Ms. Reese said, and what will forever get me is when they get mad about your money. When you ask for it back, eventually you get to the point where you just chunk it up as an L whenever you lend it out. And this is the hope, right? You're right, but this is the hope, that eventually we get to a place where we either have the galls to say no, or we give and we really don't expect anything. You know what? I'm gonna give you this. Don't even worry about it. But where I got to in life was, I'm gonna give you this. Don't even sweat it. But just don't ask again. Because the unfortunate thing about stuff like situations like that is it's typically people who don't even have responsibilities or anything that they're looking for or working towards in life. It's usually people who are just trying to survive. Not talking down on anybody who just trying to survive either, because I get it. I've been there. But when you are better in your relationship with God, better in your relationship with yourself, and operating in your purpose, meaning you are here on purpose looking for something, and I talked about this earlier, then you realize that there's a different approach that you got to take to life, especially as a Black person. It's not Black empowerment. It's human things, because we aren't the only people that want better for ourselves. We aren't the only people that are caught in our ways at times. But when we make that our plight as Black people, when we make that that's just my struggle, like just always a money thing. I don't want to always be saying that if only I had the money, if only. It's like, listen, we got to do something different, or completely shift what you're working towards or aiming to get. And when you look at this studio, it wasn't always like this. It took a very long time to get this, but we got it. And we almost there. You got to have something that you're working towards. All right. LaShonda said, for me, being Black used to mean still taking care of your family when you do have it. When you know better, you do better. Yeah, I had to tell Granny nah because of the government shutdown. Why are you bringing that up? Why are you putting that on the internet? Why you put it on outgoing internet? Nice background, by the way. I appreciate you. We still working. We still working. Um, I wanted to say something earlier. Dang it, and I hated it because I knew it was gonna leave me once I got there. Dang it, I knew it was gonna leave me. But as 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 black people, and I do, for my other people on here, I do want to get a baseline definition of what you believe that it means to be a black person. What are the characteristics or traits of black people? Because what we end up doing as a result of feeding into certain stereotypes or racial tropes is that we end up making our culture out to be a joke. Now, if you will say that what it means to be black is like growth, resiliency, or ingenuity, stuff like that. Like, black people have been pretty inventive, not just in America, in throughout the annals of time. Throughout the annals of time. But and I just, for me, when we start saying what blackness represents, it's kind of hard, in my honest opinion, for us not to say struggle or chicken or slavery. And I'm like, how do we ever put ourselves in a position to be better? When I think about Indian people, when I think about Asian people, when I think about anybody who's really been enslaved, I'm like, I don't ever think about those things. The Jewish people, I never think about Hitler. Like, you get what I'm saying? It's like they're a small group of people, but they are the most wealthy. They live by principles. Why is it that they're able to do that and we can't? That's what I be trying to understand. I have questions that I really want us to think about before we even start trying to come up with answers for them. Ms. Reese said, being black means confidence in the skin that you're in, no matter the shade. What's up, man? It's me again. My boy Connor. What's good, man? Hey, now this is a different show tonight. This might be a little heavy for you because I don't know what your culture is, what your ethnicity is, but we ain't talking football tonight, my guy, but we are dealing with some real things, some real topics tonight. But you are welcome. I definitely welcome you to stick around. Please hit that like button and please comment below. But yeah, so that's the unfortunate part for me, is not having those moments. My culture is white, but I got plenty of black friends and stuff. Now, here's the funny part about this now, Connor. So how old are you? I never got that. How old are you actually? Because you could just be a grown man who's a huge Ohio State fan, which I can respect as well. But he said, I got plenty of black friends and stuff. It's hilarious to me, actually. And then he said, I get into political debates at school. So yeah, tell me how old you are and tell me about the political debates that you get into, because one of the things that I've talked about mainly, I'm 15. You're 15? You kidding? That's dope, bro. Man, you give me some hope out here, kind of. If you 15 and you've been rocking with your boy in some capacity. But what are the okay, so that makes this even more interesting. What are some of these political debates that you get in with people at 15, if you don't mind sharing? Because that's very interesting to me, because we were talking about Kamala Harris, right? And basically the reality that she's been made to kind of be the poster child for a lot of things that I don't necessarily believe are the reality of what she should be embodying. But then again, it's like, as black people, we don't get to really represent what we really believe. I get into religious debates about atheists, and I represent the Republicans at school against the Democrats. Bruce Wayne said he might be your youngest fan. You might be my youngest fan, dog. I ain't gonna lie to you, dog. And that's why demographics are so important, because he was on here. What was it, last night? I think, was it last night or the night before? And he was in here rocking, doing You Gonna Get These Sports, and he was in here doing his thing. So, man, salute to you, my brother. I definitely appreciate you, man, for coming in and rocking with the old heads, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's dope. So you are a believer and I guess once again, this is my issue. Oh yeah, Wednesday night. Thank you. Wednesday night. Thank you. Which was a very good show. I'm gonna be honest. I thought that was a really, really good show. I think it had a great flow to it as well. But yeah, so my thing is, and for all of you who are in here, please hit the like for me. It don't cost you nothing. It don't cost you nothing. All right. You could like this and go twiddle your thumbs and play with your feet after this if you want to. But we are talking about what does it mean, and I want to ask questions that don't make people get offended by being honest, right? I don't care if you get offended; it's your right, it's your choice. But I do want to know, what does it look like, even for other cultures at times, what blackness seems to represent? Because that's the things that we have to think about. Because if there's going to be conversations that we actually have with each other that really bridge the gap and that make us have the tough conversations, those are the type of questions that I do want to know the answer to. Because I'll give you an example. When I was in college, many years ago, long time ago, I remember I was in philosophy class, and the teacher had said, well, tell me, what do you believe the characteristics of white people are? And people were saying stuff, and I said, entitled. That was my honest opinion, my honest thought process as a young 20-something year old, right? But I was a young, enraged black man in college, doing 15 hours in the summer, trying to get done. I already had a family. Life wasn't fun. And not to say that maybe I wouldn't have even kept that thought process, right? That's how I saw it, but that didn't really represent how I viewed white people in general. But there were certain standpoints of that were accurate to my experience. And the room got quiet, and they kind of moved on. And I saw nothing wrong with it, but if anybody who knows me, I can be outspoken, and that's just kind of how it goes. He said, yeah, I'm a Christian Catholic. Now, we'll get into that later. He said, so I feel like the media is giving a bad rep of police, and it makes 80% of black people hate them for being racist. So when we talk about the disconnect, and that's actually a great point there you made. So let me read this next one, and then I'll give you my thought process on what you just said. If the media wasn't giving them a bad rep, then my dad and his fellow officers wouldn't be targeted by African Americans. So last question I ask you, where exactly do you reside? Not like your actual address, but like Columbus, Ohio. You get what I'm saying? Can you give me your city and state? Here's what I'll say. I totally agree with you. And I think most things, if you look in America, represent contrarianism. It's all about making people pick a side. Cincinnati. Okay. Cool. All right, cool, my brother. Thank you for that. So yeah, if you look at America, most things represent contrarianism. It's to make you pick a side one way or another. I pledge allegiance, fill in the blank. So it's us versus them, right? Republican versus Democrat, black versus white, rich versus poor, enlightened, educated versus whatever. The everything is forced to make you pick a side. And when we look at something like police, you have people who will say, you want to teach police a lesson. You want to defund them. And my thought process as a person who attempted to be a police officer at a certain point, and it just didn't work out for me. I guess I just wonder, because I believe that I'm a very down the middle person. I believe that I'm a very objective person too. Like, I don't think most things I don't have to bring my feelings into it, right? When we look at something like policing or defunding the police, my greater question is, are you telling me that you would be defunding the police because you know of programs and systems that are directly put in place to do certain things to a certain demographic of people? Because where is this money going? If there are people who need funding, if there are people who need education, if there are people who need training, it is your local law enforcement, it is your EMTs, it is your firefighters, it is your school teachers. So I don't understand why people who have issues with the police think that that's the way to go. As we've just talked about, most of the time, people who are in power want to take a certain person, whoever that may be, and I want to make you the poster child for whatever I want you to represent. In the same way, but opposite side of the spectrum, most people take issue with police based off of a small sect of people who do have agendas, who do have issues, whether that be mental, whether that be ideologically, and it doesn't represent the reality of the value that police officers bring to communities. You want to see a hellhole, remove police from communities. People don't police their communities anymore either. People don't know how to be good neighbors, let alone police their communities. So we want to go anarchy. Like, stop. It's not real. My best friend is a police officer. Quality police officer. You want him to pull you over versus 10 other police officers, trust me. Experienced, not quick to reach for his gun, wanting to talk through most situations, a believer, thinker, emotionally stable, mature, experienced. Like, we gotta stop perpetuating the stupidity. And that's my point. It's like Black Lives Mattered until some show came on, or we gotta stop the cap, y'all, is all I'm saying. And as Black people, we gotta, like, I get what happened in the 60s. I get what happened with the sit-ins. I get that people were mauled. I get that. But expansion and growth and maturity says that we can't keep judging the world we live in now and how we approach it to things that happened 60, 70 years ago, albeit a reality in some ways. I'd say this dude here, bro. Hold on. Hold on. Because I'm going to get to the cap in a second at the bottom. I can't stand him. My friend's dad was an officer. My dad's friend, who was an officer, was killed by a father whose son was killed for pulling a gun on a cop. Man, that's tough to hear, my brother. That's unfortunate too. I don't think that's not cool. It's unfortunate that kid chose to pull a gun. It's tough. That's tough. I ain't gonna lie to you, act like I have the answers for that. I just think that healing and forgiveness are two things that are synonymous. And it's easier said than done. I sat in a therapy session today with the realization that I wasn't fully healed from a relationship with a family member. And partially it's because I haven't fully forgave that person. So when we talk about mending fences in life, when we talk about communal relationships like police officers with the community, being able to see them as human. There are people who celebrate the death of police officers because we live in a world where we feel like the best answer is to fight fire with fire. And the reality is you use water. And so, my condolences to that person. I don't think that's cool by any stretch, but we can't use these situations that go on within our communities as justification to do things like that. Because you are no better than your oppressor if you answer hate with hate. Always remember that. All right. He said, I think defunding the police is a stupid idea. Who's gonna take over and protect you when someone is mugging you? Well, but it goes deeper than that, though, right? Because I think what people miss about defunding the police, the idea of it is it's not like, oh, we're just gonna bankrupt the police force. No, it's taking away vital resources that are essential for training, growth, development, etc. Certain budgets to allocate them to other things, and everybody needs stuff everywhere. So just stop with the stupidity and just learn how to look at the whole picture and, judge a leopard by its spots. We besties, folk. Hey, folk, I was about to say something wild. Outside of your wife, I gotta take that. I gotta take it, folk. I gotta take it, folk. Outside of LaShonda, folk, you gotta take it, folk. It just is what it is. It just is what it is. Kind of said, and Cincinnati is terrible here because all the police are quitting because they are being targeted, and people wonder why ICE agents hide their identity. Well, now that is a whole nother bag of bones here. Now, I ain't gonna lie to you. The ICE situation is a lot different, but I do understand what you're saying. And I'll be honest, I guess I will even ask Randy, would you appreciate that approach to it? Meaning like people who walk away versus taking more of I'm a police officer, but I'm a vigilante, so I'm going to get you before you get me type of thing. You get what I'm saying? Because I can see that shifting the mindset two different ways, making you be so high on alert because if there are situations where police are being targeted, then it makes for a very tense, a job that's already tense, a very tense, strong, like more dangerous situation where somebody feels like they have to be extra on guard in doing their job. So yeah, that's just tough, man. And don't forget handsome. Go on now. Besties. Interesting. Why is that interesting? Cause how you tell? Cause how you feel it? He childish. That was a bad deal in Ohio. Condolences to the officer who had nothing to do with the incident. Nah, for sure. That's tough, man. And Reese said betrayal. Nah, I'm not. Listen, the order is Reese, then Randy. You get what I'm saying? I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? I was hoping to become a cop and have a family, but now I realize I have to pick one nowadays. Can't do both. I disagree with you, brother. Here's the reality. Tough times call for tough men. And if there's a call in your life for that, I believe you should never negate the call that God has on your life. If it is in fact a call, there's no thing that says you can't have a family because you're an officer. It's just not reality. You go and you approach the job the best way possible. During the day, I deliver mail. God forbid, but anything can happen to me. The job in today's society, I'll say it this way. There's no job that's particularly more safe than another. A car could go flying into somebody's house that work for home. And I'm not trying to be morbid. It's just reality. Like you go live your life to the best and fullness that you are given with the breath that's in your body. You have your family, you live your life, but you don't have to choose between that. You know what I'm saying? I'm never mad at somebody for choosing to picking something and saying I'm gonna go hard for it, but leave yourself the bandwidth as God leads you to be able to do the things that you're called to in life. Absolutely. And then Randy said, you have to look at reality. The keyboard warriors are not the people you police. Most people want us in their communities. Get offline and look at your reality. That's a fact. That's a fact, because I'm gonna call them folks on you, Kinfolk. You come over my house with all that craziness, I'm gonna try to call them folks. Now, if you put yourself in harm's way, you put yourself in harm's way. Nah, that's all I'm gonna say. Shout out to Ray. We'll do no snitching. Come on. I'm just playing, y'all. I don't want my kids to grow up without a father figure or my wife being a widow if I'm killed in the line of duty. Well, and here's the reality, brother. That my point is that's a part of the reality of life. There are people who haven't made it 20 years old that were never putting themselves in harm's way. You can't live your life in fear of things that you can't control. You just go live your life to the best of your ability, and you prayerfully go out and do whatever you believe God has you know, put you on earth to do. Where do you stand? Where do I stand politically? I'm a believer. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a libertarian. I'm not none of that. I vote the Bible. Um, that's what I believe, man. I think I'm more conservative in the way that I live my life, and based off of how I believe the Bible and how God, designed life to be. But then I do believe that there are a lot of parts of life that are nuanced. I do believe that there are certain things that the Bible doesn't exclusively speak to, but there are frameworks that we have that help us govern our lives in a society where we experience things in a way that they didn't exist in the Bible days, so to speak. There weren't TVs in the Bible days. You get what I'm saying? And that's just a simple example. Like, entertainment was different. So yeah, I'm a believer, man. I believe that you render to Caesar what's his. So yes, I'll pay my taxes. I'll vote for who I truly do believe can represent us the best way possible. But a lot of times we're rooting for the lesser of two evils, and so that's just kind of where I stand. I believe no matter who's in office, God is still in control, and so I don't just vote for black people because they're black. I'm sorry if that's the way you vote. I respect you as a person, but I can't live my life like that. I don't think white people are inherently evil either, and so that's just what that is. Um, he said, "I meant die, not day." Understood. He said, Randy said, accept Jesus right now and can lead you to Christ right now, and you won't have to worry about that, Connor. And then he said, Randy, I'm a Christian. Yeah, man. So for sure. And, we have tons of resources as well, Connor. You know, So my platform, and I have a think tank that I do here locally in the Metroplex where we have men come together. It's a community of men where we're trying to build solid foundations. And then Randy has a platform as well. He has a thing he calls Pray, Chop, and Chill. I'm trying to think of the actual platform that you use that's not coming to me right now. But yeah, he has Pray, Chop, and Chill. So that's like it's not Patreon. What is it, bro? What is it freaking called? It's about to make me mad. Actions speak louder than words is what I believe in. Yeah, but and I can rock with that. But what is the basis of that, though? What is that rooted in? You get what I'm saying? Like, I desire to, because I don't think I always do the best of it. is I desire to live a principled life. And so for me, that, I desire to live my principles that are based off of biblical structure. You get what I'm saying? And so then it's like whatever doesn't fit into that bubble, then now I have to make a decision on how I approach something based off of wisdom, what does the word say, etc. And of course the voice of God. So you're good to go. My bad. I think I misunderstood what you were saying. Okay, and I got your text too, Randy. I understand what you were saying too. I'm just saying, me saying that I believe in Jesus isn't an automatic pass to heaven. You still have to follow his commandments and laws. Yes. I want to make sure that I read that carefully because I can't just say I believe in God and I believe in Jesus and I'm going to heaven. You're right. That's Romans. And I don't know if Randy was going to go there. Romans 10:9. Was it Romans 10:9 or Romans 10? Yeah, Romans 10:9. There's definitely got to be a confession with the mouth and belief in the heart for sure that Jesus Christ is your Lord for sure. And that speaks to actual conversion versus just a prayer that people say on Sunday too. That's another thing we would have to kind of get into. We are totally off the wagon of what we was talking about, but this is necessary and important for anybody who decides to stick around and stay. And as I said before, please make sure y'all hit the like. It is free. But yes, there is definitely, now we live under the dispensation of grace, so it's impossible to keep the law. God enforced the law to show us that we couldn't keep the law, right? There's never a way that we were going to be good enough. So we definitely needed a savior, and to be able to lean into something greater than ourselves to be able to live in right standing with God. So that obviously is where Jesus steps in. So, you're absolutely correct though. But I'm going to believe you know that I understand that as well. Because most Christians believe that you just have to believe in Jesus and they expect an automatic pass to heaven. Right. And you're not wrong. I think that also shows a maturity disconnect as well when people think that just believing in Jesus and then saying you believe in Jesus and then going and live life however you want to. Clearly, that is not correct. There should be some level of conviction that you feel in doing things that separate you from God and what that is indicated to be as sin as well. So you're absolutely right, my brother. For 15, you definitely have you a pretty good grasp. So hopefully you have a level of community that you're able to lean into, to be able to continue to cultivate you as a young believer. Confess and believe, then surrender and let God handle the rest. Even that, I ain't gonna lie, even that last part is a little tricky for me sometimes. Not in how I live my life, but telling young people that, or new people that are new to the faith, it can be a little tricky because it's like, let God handle the rest. It's like, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? You get what I'm saying? So it's not that I even disagree with it, but it's like, I believe that we also need large levels of practicality in how we live our lives, meaning there should be some regularity to you opening your Bible. There should be large regularity of prayer and fasting. There should be large regularity of the meeting of the saints. You know what I'm saying? Not forsaking the assembly of the saints, going, having a place where you show up and serve on a regular basis. So that's what I'm more speaking to. Like, there are certain things that are absolutely imperative that we do regularly to help cultivate our relationship with God and help better ourselves as believers. You can't rely on God for everything. He gave us free will, the power to make our own choices, whether we choose to follow him or not. So I think it'd be like layers of truth to what you say, but it's not that I'm saying there's a level of like something that's not true. It's, you're right, because it's like we're not robots. It's not like I'm gonna get up and go do everything that God tells me to do today. It's not like that, right? So you're absolutely correct. But then there's this thing where there's this level of I think there's also a level of like, this is already played out. We're just living it now, right? God knows the beginning from the end from the beginning. He's the Alpha and the Omega, right? All those things. So he knew who was going to stay. He knew who was going to not stay. So there's a part of free will that's like, he also operates, he has this sovereignty. So he operates on this plane that is far greater than what we even understand. So it's like he knew in the end that Adam was going to bite the apple. So he sent provision in his son. It's just how big God is. We can't fit him in a box. But at the same time, I do get what you're saying though, right? It's like, yes, we're not just these people we're not like angels. I don't think angels at this point have a choice on because if angels didn't have a choice, then how did the third choose to follow Satan? So I do believe that there was some level of choice that they had to have had. And I don't understand that situation fully, but I would like to think there was some level of choice that they had. Because if they all just were just gonna do what God said, they would have never listened to Satan. You get what I'm saying? So yeah. And so LaShonda said, correct. God already sealed the deal. So then he said, so what you're saying is that you're Lutheran or Calvinist, but you're talking about predestination. Oh, right. I'm saying I do believe that what we're living right now isn't a surprise to God, right? Like he knew this. But when you talk about Lutheran versus Calvinist, I'm not really necessarily into that. I do know that the frames of thought that you're speaking about, predestination, all that could have came from these models, right? Whether you talk about like being Armenian or something like that, right? So I get what you're saying. I'm not necessarily like, or what's I'm trying to think because there's so many other terms, and I've not studied the Lutheran or the Calvinist or the Armenian. Like I just have brief understandings of them, so I don't go that deep into it as a frame of thought, if that makes any sense. So they're both heretics to me. Fine, right? Okay, I can rock. I mean, I ain't saying I agree or disagree. I'm saying I don't even know enough to argue for it or against it. I just know that Calvinists are a lot more like we're inherently bad, or you get what I'm saying? Like we're just the scum of the earth, and it was just without God we would just continue to be scum. You get what I'm saying? It's like a very dreary way of like looking at life. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't attest to any one of those, like Lutheran or Calvinist. I think anytime somebody was trying to create something in history to break away from the way that people had made a mockery of what the faith was, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I don't think Martin Luther was necessarily wrong in saying, hey, we forgot about these things. But I think we also have to be careful in how I think we also have to be evolving. I think the only thing that doesn't change is the word. And I think the impact that it can have on our lives consistently as Black people, white people, Asian people, Hispanic people, doesn't matter. It will always be the same. The word it's the word, right? It has the ability to pierce our hearts, bone and marrow, and all those things that the word says. But I'm not a Calvinist. I'm not a Lutheranist. I'm not any of that. You know what I'm saying? I think that's what kind of starts to muddy the water. You know what I'm saying? For us as believers, when we start trying to lean into those type of things. Like Martin Luther denied the traditional church and created the Lutheran church, and John Calvin followed. See, that's what I'm saying. I think the frame of thought that they may have had at times, I think the frame of thought that they had at times, I don't think they were just denying. I don't think they were denying the church because it looked like Jesus, if that makes sense. I think they saw issues where people may have taken things and went to the extreme. Now, it doesn't mean that what they ultimately could have done was like the best thing. I'm not saying that either, but I'm like, personally, I wouldn't say, "Oh, Christianity today is all wrong." I'm making the Wayneism. You get what I'm saying? Listen. No, what does this word say? And I think that is the bottom line to it all. What does the word say? And do we have a sound understanding of what the word was trying to say? Because the word can never mean something that it never meant. And it can never mean something. It can never mean something it never meant. And it can never say nothing it was never trying to say. So, and that's from Darius Daniels. So it's like, no, what it meant then, it means now. You get what I'm saying? Culturally, it could apply differently, but it still means the same thing 2,000 years ago as it means now. You said, "Are you a non-denominational? Are you a non-denominational?" I believe that's what I was for a majority of my life, to be honest. Well, so I grew up Church of the Nazarene, and then it was non-denominational, and I believe that KCC was like Baptist. I don't attest to those titles as much. I follow Jesus, man. And I'm not saying that to that's really my answer. I try to follow Jesus the best I can. Um I don't believe I should necessarily be pigeonholed because I church church I mean Church of Nazarene was like based largely around holiness, right? Which is cool, but it could really birth high levels of judgmentalness within the Bible and the way you live your life. In my experience, right? Um, but that was my experience for 10, 12, 15 years of being a believer early on. So I needed reforming in how I live my life as a believer because it was skewed based off of that denomination. This is the best way I can say that. Charlemagne was not Charlemagne was not the ideal Catholic. He gave us really bad representation for the executions he did. And to be honest, within any sect, there's always gonna be that stuff. That's why I'm just like, man, if we would all be better off just saying we're followers of Jesus. We live by the Bible. How does it remain as relevant today as it was back then? And focus on having community and loving people. Period. And also, the Spanish Inquisition gave Catholics a really bad rep. Also, now I got to get into this now because you keep bringing up Catholic. Now you know there's a difference between Catholicism and Christianity, right? Most Christians denominations are feel-good denominations. They just go to church for the wrong reasons. You're not wrong. Are you 15 for real? Stop playing. You are not 15, bro. Why are you trolling me right now? But you're not wrong. You're not wrong. All right, bro. Well, you're an intelligent 15-year-old, bro. I give you respect for sure. I'm being serious. Okay, now I respect it, bro. So there is a difference between Catholicism and Christianity. Do you know that, or do you believe they're the same thing? That's a real question. I do apologize for anybody who is hopping in to talk about black the black situation, black tropes, or the new blackface. Please go to the very beginning and watch it. We talked about it but we kind of didn't start it, kind of taking a life of its own. I'm educated pretty good for 15, for sure. Catholic just means universal. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you, my brother. I will say this. Catholics believe in the Holy Mary, Mother Mary. Don't they like pray to Mary? They don't believe in Jesus as the Savior. I'm pretty solid on that. They do mass rites. Yes, it's not the same. They don't believe that Jesus is their Savior. And like I said, they pray to Mary. I'll be honest, outside of having Jesus, there's nothing, and even that doesn't mean we should pray to her or worship her. We are Christians that believe to be the direct church from Christ. The term Catholic comes into play, but it means universal church. Who told you that Jesus wasn't our Savior? No. From my understanding, brother, I could be wrong here. What I'm saying is, for people who profess to be Catholic, who practice Catholicism, it was my understanding that they don't believe that Jesus is their Savior. It's like they don't even believe in the whole books of the Bible, if I'm not mistaken. Like I said, the whole praying to Mary thing, it's like y'all pray to like saints or something like that, right? I'm not being funny here. I'm trying to get an understanding, but to my knowledge, that's how it worked. We believe Jesus is our Savior, and we venerate Mary because she was given Jesus by the Holy Spirit. Okay. Venerate, meaning y'all pay homage to, y'all honor Mary because she, like, almost saying it was something special about her because no man gave her Jesus, but the Holy Spirit did. Okay. I can't even argue with you on a lot of that stuff. Like I said, I'm not versed in it, but I would just encourage you to look a little deeper as far as, I'm not telling you you're wrong. Please to hear my heart on this. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying Catholicism and Christianity aren't the same thing, though. They aren't. That I know for sure. But you said you're a believer. I'm gonna say you're a believer. I'm gonna rock with you on that, my brother. You say you believe in Jesus. I ain't arguing with you on that. So what do you read? What do you read? Let me ask you that. What literature do you read as far as your faith is concerned? Hold certain respect. Okay, right, for sure. And when the saints come into play, it's like asking someone to pray for you for an extra guidance. Okay, so this is where we get a little sticky here, right? Because when we start talking about praying to saints for guidance, it's like me saying I pray to Moses for guidance. I pray to Elijah for guidance. If that make any sense, right? What do you mean by literature, like recreational reading? No, I mean like Christians read the Bible. Y'all read what? That's what I meant. Sorry. Literature meaning like, the Bible is a piece of literature. So yeah, it's almost like I don't pray to multiple things. I pray to God. You get what I'm saying? Like I don't say, oh, Mary, like help me, guide me. Like Mary was just a woman, but she did possess the ability because of her purity to be able to embody the Son of Man, the Son of God. But that in and of itself that's the extent of it, though. Like there's nothing special like outside. Now, mind you, to not be impregnated by a man, but by the Holy Spirit to have a baby is special. But I ain't praying to her. You get what I'm saying? I'm saying for my Christian beliefs. Okay, you say we read the Bible. Okay, cool, cool, cool. And I'm not being funny here. I'm really getting understanding. And then you said Saint Jerome directly translated the Bible from Hebrew to other languages. I mean, that's dope. I ain't praying to him though. You get what I'm saying? Appreciate you, Saint Jerome. I ain't praying to you though. You know what I'm saying? Like you did a good thing. I'm not praying to you. It's almost like in other cultures, whether that be in certain like Hispanic cultures, like with rosaries. Do y'all do the rosaries? Right? I mean, maybe I'm thinking of two different things. Do y'all have rosaries? Okay, 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 okay. So y'all don't pray to any saints. Catholic high school regard Catholic have high regard for Mary as the mother of God, but do not worship, but not the worship of her. Well, why is am I the okay? This says there's 6 people in here. Does anybody else attest to what I'm saying as something that they believe that's what it was? And if I'm just alone in this, maybe I just got this all wrong. I got it all wrong. But it would, to my knowledge, and I'm yes, we have rosaries. What is the purpose of rosaries? We don't pray to the saints. They are just there as role models to look up to and to be just like them. Meaning, in the same way, okay, so you're saying in the same way that Paul, in the same way that we would say Paul was one of the forefathers of the faith. One, man, I would love to live my life emboldened in a way like how Paul lived his life. Peter, David, all these figures, in the same way that we have a level of reverence for them as the figures in the Bible, you're saying that's the same way that y'all view Saint Jerome or Saint Germain or whoever. I have no knowledge of it to speak on it. I already know you did. That's the funny part. I already know. You like, I don't know the folks. Yes, pretty much. Okay. I just want to have a real understanding because this whole time I've been throwing smut on y'all name, dog. I ain't gonna lie to you. I'm like, man, what these folks talking about, dog? You know what I'm saying? Not like for real, because I don't be focused on nothing that don't got to do with me. But that makes sense. Okay, all right. Anything else to add? Because you kind of gave me a little lesson on Catholicism tonight. Oh yeah, and please tell me what the purpose of rosaries are. Because when people be praying, they be the Hispanic people that I've seen and stuff like that, they pray to them and they be like holding them or something or rubbing on them or something. I don't know. So they sound similar just listening to y'all. Yeah, they sound similar. But anyway, once again, for anybody who is listening, wanting to talk specifically to the black portion of the conversation, I do encourage you to go back and watch it from the beginning if you're just not hopping in. We have kind of went down a little road of sorts, talking about other things in matters of faith. But but this brings me to another thing. You said how'd I do in describing, because you're the first person to actually listen to what I had to say about Catholics. No, I think you did a good job. And that's my point, though, that we have to do a better job of having certain conversations. We are so big on just putting ourselves in a bubble of what we want to hear or don't want to hear that we don't get to an understanding. How can two agree unless they walk? How can two walk together unless they agree? So it's just one of those things where it's like we need to. I'm learning a lesson of listening more and talking when necessary because I talk well. it comes easy to me, but that doesn't mean that you're always coming to an understanding because you talk well. Typically, if I'm using my mouth, my ears aren't as attuned. Now, I listen very well in talking as well. But no, you did a great job, my brother. You did a great job. You said so the rosary was Our Lady's promise given to us in like 1914 or something when she appeared to some town. It was documented, by the way. So the rosary was Our Lady's promise given. What lady? What lady are you talking about? It was documented. And you mean like this is an account of like some special encounter in 1914? All right. But yeah, so this brings me to another thing, especially when we talk about Our Lady is also Mary. Wait, so you're saying Mary showed up in 1914 with rosaries? You might as well go and type this one out, kinfolk, because kinfolk mean family. Type this one out for me. Google Our Lady in Fatima. So here's where I start saying that it's a difference between Catholics and Christians, right? Because in Christian faith, there is no rosary, there is no Mary appeared to us in 1914. I don't get it. I'm not gonna lie. It should tell you it should tell you because I'm limited to 150 words. Okay, I got you. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I still think there are slight differences for sure between what it means to be Catholic and what it means to be Christian. I think, for example, Seventh-day Adventists, they still read the Bible. Mormons have some version of the Bible, right? I just think overall, key differences. I'll agree on that. There are some key differences. I'll agree on that. Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's some differences. And the fact that, like, for instance, most believers would say, do you believe in the death, burial, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Right? Do you believe in the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit? Do you believe that Christ is coming back again one day? Do you believe that Jesus is the Son of God? Do you believe that I don't know, is that what else is there to the do you believe that do you believe with your believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord, that he's coming back one day? So yeah, those things. Do you like so it's like those are like the foundational things of the faith, right? And so outside of that, we don't really have other things. You get what I'm saying? So rosaries, Mary, saints, we make reference to the saints as a whole, like we are the saints. You get what I'm saying? Like we are the saints of the faith. Like you get what I'm saying? So, and then we talk about Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Those are like Joseph. Those are major, minor prophets. Great kings, whatever. We don't necessarily acknowledge them for guidance or anything, is what I'm saying. So that's where I think there's a big difference. You have some level of faith. I don't think me as saying I'm a Christian, I would never mingle it with being Catholic. I would think we have two different things going on. So that's what I would say. So let me ask you, let me ask you though, Connor, because I know you said that you are a Christian, right? So, and give me y'all just pause here for a second for those people who are watching. Just give me 1 second. Just give me 1 second here. Y'all be patient with me, right? So let me go to Romans 10. Let me just give me a second here. This is from the New King James Version. I'm actually a huge fan of New King James. But it says in Romans 10, verse 8, I'm going to start there. But what does it say? The word is near you, in your mouth and in your heart. Um, in your mouth and in your heart. That is the word of faith which we preach. That if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. And then it says, for with the heart one believes unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes on him will not be put to shame, for there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich to all who call upon him. So that's my question. Um, did you ever confess that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart? That's my question to you. Did you specifically do that? And then you said, as long as we believe the basic fundamentals, we should be fine. I here's what I also want to say. Specifically, do what again? So did you have a moment in your life where there was a internally a understanding and a belief that Jesus Christ is Lord, and a confession, an outward confession of whatever that, but in your like, I do believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that he died, that he rose from the dead. Did you have that outward expression and this inward knowing and belief in your heart that he is the Son of God, that he did die and that he did raise again? Did you actually experience that internally and express it outwardly? That's my question. Take a little swig from my canteen again. Thank you to whoever is on here watching. I appreciate y'all for being patient and for tuning in and rocking with your boy at the Mind of a Man Network. If you are not subscribed, please do me a button. Please do me a favor and hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified of all the shows that do come to the network on a daily basis, week by week, as well as hit the like button for me so we can help get other people in here as we have certain conversations. You said, yeah, I deeply believe that Christ died for us and rose again, and that he is the Son of God. I'll answer a few more questions, but then I have to go, and I'll possibly pop back in later. My only other question is, did you outwardly confess it? Because if you didn't, hear me out. Just be patient with me, my brother, my 15-year-old wise brother. I would encourage you to take yourself as a moment to yourself, no matter who's in the room, no matter where you may be right now, to hit that knee. We bow to kings, and specifically the King of Kings and Jesus Christ, to hit your knee and follow what Romans 10:7 says. That's it. If you did that, my brother, me and you good. As long as you have God, I give you my life. I believe that you are the Lord. I believe you are the son of God. You died and you rose. And if there's a true belief in that you know Jesus Christ is alive today, he's your Lord, we good. And you said, yes, I outwardly told people that I believe in him. Connor, here's what's funny about you, dog. You always have a little curve to your stuff, right? It's like, I mean, it still applies. It still applies, right? You outwardly professed it, that works. So you good with me, my brother. But you funny to me, dog. I'm gonna be honest. I rock with you though, dog. I rock with you the long way, dog. But so as we continue along, we also have to get into this idea that most Black people who get into the Africanism, the ancestral worship, the ones who believe that the Bible. Hi, my guy. I see you, man. Those people who believe that the Bible was given to Africans by slaves. Hebrew Israelites of the world. I don't know. Who you people are. I gotta say, it's the most overdone, disappointing argument that you can make for Black people. This still very much applies to the conversation that we've been having from the very beginning. The reality is that the Bible, if you've ever read the Bible and you saw the story where Philip was minding his business and the African, I believe he might have even been Nigerian, but the African man, as he was, I think Philip was reading the word out loud in Acts. Correct me if I'm wrong. And it says, as he was reading it, something burned. The word burned in the African man's heart, and he was reading it and he didn't understand it. Dang it! I'm sorry that I'm not quoting it exactly, but the point was, it is very much believed that that African man went and that represented the word spreading throughout Africa. That encounter with Philip interpreting the word to that African man is what started the outbreak of the word being spread throughout Africa, predating slavery by thousands of years. You know that the European people did not come up with the Bible, right? You know that it is a historical fact that the Torah existed in Africa. It didn't exist in Europe, basically. We do know that, right? Please tell me that I'm talking to bright individuals who know that based off of region alone, Jesus couldn't have been couldn't have been a white man, right? And I'm not the one to tell you that he was a Black man like you and I, if you were a Black man watching this, or a Black woman. He wasn't Black like us either. But he, for sure, if you look at, there are people that spoke the Aramaic language that were from that region that never left. They are olive skinned as the day is long. They don't look like today's Black people at all. So my point is, some arguments that are used to pull on Black culture are very rudimentary, very inundated, very uninformed. One of my coworkers, whom I love, said she didn't want to say good morning no more because it was European and it was a part of their culture. I'm not mad if you don't want to say good morning no more, but I ain't saying grand rising. I'm just not saying it. What's the origins of that? The idea or the belief that all Africans practice African spiritualism is also asinine and a bit idiotic, if I'm being honest. There were Moors that were Christians. There were Arabs that were Christians. Do we have to really have this conversation? Do we really have to like go and break down? We know that Lucy, the first bones ever discovered, the oldest bones on the earth were found in Africa, right? So we know it wasn't Europe. So but for skin tone and culture alone, we know that Jesus wasn't a white, blue-eyed, blonde-haired man, right? Are we still having this conversation in 2025? I was not the brightest kid in the world, and I knew that Jesus, it was impossible. I'm like, how does this match up with this picture that my granny got up in the house? Because I'm looking at this map in the back of the Bible. This is pretty much Africa. So we have to, we got to wise up here a bit as Black people in our approach to life and knowledge and information. Stop being scared to open. They said, you want to hide something from a Black person, put in the book. That includes the Bible. Just read it by any chance. So anyway, I won't belabor the point. We've been rocking out for pretty much 2 hours here. I appreciate everybody who's my faithful fews. I love you from the bottom of my corazón. Y'all already know. My brain trust, that's my folks. If you're a first-time watcher, first-time listener, you come on back around now, you're here. Show them boys how you do it up in Harlem there, boy. I thank you for tuning in and chopping and rapping a taste with your boy Ammo. I pray that this was conversation that was fruitful for somebody. I understand it ain't gonna be for everybody. We acquire taste around here sometimes. But I do appreciate anybody who's been rocking out, anybody who hit the like button, anybody who subscribed. What you guys contribute is invaluable. You don't realize how far it goes to actually hit the like button or to share it with somebody or to actually tune in and help me get closer and closer to monetization. So I appreciate you. Black people, I need you to realize that inauthenticity is going to derail your value in the marketplace. It's going to devalue where we stand in society. We have to be people who stand on something that is worth it. Principles, standards, having levels of morality, being good husbands, being good fathers, being good examples in the community, but also just being who you're actually made to be. Stop falling for whatever is going to get you the quickest way to get you $100,000 in your bank account, because those type of things are why we are put out as tropes in society that people don't respect. Essentially shucking and jiving for a little extra money. I'm your host, Anthony Moore, and Mo, for those of you who may not know for sure, as I end every show. Life is hard enough, so please don't just live elevated. Until next time, I love you. May the Lord keep you. We got a couple comments before I say my last line. I got on late, but I always stay until the end, and you always appreciate it. You'll appreciate it. Shout out to the year that I sung at KCC, and we did that right before we sung Sweet Sadie for Mother's Day. That was the dumbest thing ever. You'll appreciate still listening to. Appreciate you, my man, Bruce Glass. Thank you, LaShonda. Thank you, Randy C. Mays. Thank you for all my people who be creeping. Y'all don't never comment. I don't even think I'll be hitting the like. It's weird, but I do love you. You keep on creeping and you keep on watching. Until next time, I love you. May the Lord keep you. I'll see you at the conference. I can't wait to do church flow next week. Y'all be easy. Why now? Hey, and last thing, go comment on the actual post once this like you know what I'm saying, that outside of the live chat. That kind of help your boy out too. Anyway, all right, I'm gone. I didn't ask for too much. I always hit the like button. My boy Bruce, man, Bruce Glass, man, we down like 4 flats, kinfolk. You ain't gotta say nothing, kinfolk. You know what I'm saying? So, hey, as sure as the sun rises in the east, sets in the west, kinfolk, I know it's people I can depend on when it comes to this content, and you one of my people, dog. I appreciate you. So say less. I love y'all.